You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Brendan McKay.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. And in this series, we are sticking with interviewing the men and women that make up the Vetted VA professionals. Now, we've talked about it a little bit more, but these professionals have joined us. They invest into the Vetted VA community. They purchase access of training and education and accountability, and then they serve. And as part of the accountability structure, they test themselves. They go through a bunch of training courses we developed and said, you have to do it. They said, okay, we'll do it. And then they show up and they share their story, their wisdom, their experiences, and their insights to all the questions. There's 87,000 professional or community members in our Facebook group now of veterans and service members who are asking all sorts of questions. And so today with me is Brendan McKay of McKay Mortgage and many other things that we're going to discuss. But it's been my pleasure for 6 years now to get to know Brendan, to enjoy a camaraderie, enjoy the challenges. He is one that will fight for the underdog. He'll fight for truth to be out in front of all things, even if it's truth nobody wants to hear. And he pushes for it. And one of my most cherished memories of Brendan was sitting in an Amplify event with him and hearing his story about why he is this way. And it really just resonated with me that as a young man, as somebody who just fought for justice, that it irks him beyond all things if he can't find it, and he looks for it, he seeks it, and he fights for it. And so with that, I'm excited to have Brendan on this podcast, but I'm excited too to talk more about what we are building together as well. And what he's been building, I should say, with others, and that Vetted VA is able to come in and partner alongside. So thank you for being here, Brendan.
Yeah, you got it, man. Thanks for the introduction. I'm glad the message to Amplify got through between my crying fits that I experienced throughout the entire thing too. So that was quite the experience, and I'm really stoked that you and Chris are part of it too.
Yeah, it was a powerful experience. It was a good time to learn to tell our stories. But Brendan, tell me about McKay Mortgage and how you got started in this industry and where it's led you from there.
It's a family business. So my name is Brendan McKay. I own McKay Mortgage, which is a small brokerage based out of Bethesda, Maryland, which is right on the border of Washington, D.C. And I opened it with my mom, Tina McKay. And Tina has been in the mortgage industry longer than she would like me to say. One summer I was intern or working for my dad. My dad owned a small concrete company doing driveways and sidewalks and stuff like that. And it was awful, basically prison labor, just picking up rocks and throwing them in the dumpster all day long or in the dump truck. And then after that, I said, maybe I should see what my mom does. And I interned at a mortgage bank the next year. And after graduating college, started working for her. She operated a regional operations center, underwriting center for a large nationwide lender, and got in the business then, and had a quick blip out of it after the crash in 2008. Got right back in, and 7 or 8 years ago, we opened up McKay Mortgage, and life is good. But yeah, that is the very short story of how I got into it. But it's the family business.
It's like so many things in this industry, you get into it because somebody said, he might be good at this, or as a family member. It's not one you go to college for. Nobody writes it down on the major list. You're like, I'm going to go into finance. Does that mean mortgages? No, that they're thinking finance, bro. And this is there's such a new world out here in the mortgage world.
And it's the same. I was like, I don't want to work for my mom. And I right after college, I was interning. I was doing temp work. I was actually at the DC Catholic Archdiocese doing temp work there, making nothing. And she's like, come work for me. And she's like, here's what I'll pay you. And I'm like, all right, great. That's about twice of what I'm making right now. So I'll see you on Monday. Yeah.
Yes, see you there. Yeah. Tina is she's a cherished one in our world. She is the godmother of mortgage to many of us. And so we appreciate her greatly and the entire McKay family. But now, what y'all have been building out there 7-8 years, man, you came with excellence in your DNA, and then the way you guys have served and kind of grown. What led you into the VA lending space, and why so passionate about it?
Well, a lot of reasons. I do work with a lot of veterans. I think that there's lots of companies and loan officers out there that market themselves as VA experts and this and that, and they're not. And their terms are terrible and all these different things. So I think that it is an area that to speak from a position of self-interest, that has a lot of room for improvement, which means a lot of opportunity for people who are doing a good job and do have sharp pricing. And we are able to offer that. Our background in operations gives us a high level of expertise. And just simply put, it's a very underserved community, but it's an awesome community to be part of and do business within. The VA loan is the greatest mortgage product on the earth. The guidelines are extremely friendly, and I get to say yes a lot more often than I do to non-veterans and things like that. And once you do right by a veteran, that is a very closed network. It's a very large network, but it's a very closed one, and they refer to each other. Furthermore, the government doesn't care what interest rates are. They're going to PCS people across the country, and if they have a family, they need to buy a house. And all of these things are reasons from a business perspective that I think it makes a lot of sense. That is why I do it. Why I love it is because I like solving problems, and I consider myself as patriotic as the next person. I hate how much false patriotism there is out there. It bothers me a lot. I think patriotism is action, not words. But I love solving problems, and veterans have a lot of them. And if we're in a position to do it, and it's wonderful. And what better group of people to serve and build a profitable business around serving and serve at a higher level than they're getting anywhere else. I just think it's awesome. And I love it. Right now, about 40% of my business is VA loans, and I would love for it to be 100% of my business. It's fantastic.
So I'm going to dive into something that you spearheaded there in Maryland, and then that snowballed from. It was like, what do they say? A snowball is just a compilation of many snowflakes, and it came together really, really quick. Not in the negative word of snowflake, by the way. Now I just said that out loud. Let me clarify that. More like a snowball turns into a roll it downhill, and it turns bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's fine. I'm both. I take everything personal. So like, I check both boxes. Don't worry.
But in Maryland, you jumped in and you got started in the tax exemption for disabled veterans process, and that has just led to a lot of different things you've been involved in. So your unique experiences in this, I'd love you just to lead the way. Tell us about all the stuff that's been going on and how one thing led to another, and what you've been involved in.
Yeah. So like I said, I like solving problems, and I like identifying problems, and then if I think I can identify a lot of problems, but I don't have the power to control and solve a lot of the problems in the world. But this is one where I thought I did, and it was very frustrating to me as an originator. So in Maryland, as well as many other states across the country, if you have a 100% disability rating, you are exempt from real estate taxes. That is always, whatever. That's been true for a very long time in Maryland. What was also true is that you couldn't apply for that exemption until after you took ownership of the home, which makes sense on the surface. And it's like, well, you can't be exempt if you don't own the house yet. The problem, though, that it caused is because they were not exempt from taxes during the underwriting process. A lot of underwriters reasonably would count these taxes against them, even though they're ghost taxes. There's not really clear guidance in the guidelines on what to do in these situations. And in Maryland at the time, it represented a $70,000 difference in buying power, meaning that if those monthly or annual taxes were not counting against them in qualifying, they'd be able to qualify for, on average, $70,000 more house. It was a big, big, big deal. And talking to a couple veterans about this and explaining it to them, and they're like, well, that's really dumb. I'm like, I agree. It is really dumb. So I'm involved in my state association, Maryland Mortgage Bankers and Brokers Association. And I went to the other people that run the government affairs committee with me and said, hey, this is really stupid. We should see about getting a bill introduced at the state level to change it. So that's what we did. And it passed unanimously extremely quickly. From the point of having that conversation with my friends at the association to it being signed by the governor was less than 9 months, which is warp speed in legislative world. And now they can apply and they get the same letter, and it just says upon taking ownership, they are exempt. So They're still not technically exempt till they own it, but it just happens immediately at closing. And that is all that underwriting needs to be able to back these taxes out of their qualification. You don't have to collect thousands of dollars of tax escrow at closing that's just going to get refunded back to them. Problem solved. And since then, we have passed it in 5 other states, California, Florida, Utah. I shouldn't have started listing. I knew I was going to forget some. Virginia, and I'm forgetting one more. And so we're really, really stoked and excited about it. Now we're working on, in part of my role at doing national advocacy through the Broker Action Coalition, which I can't help myself clearly. We are working on getting a guideline change with the VA that would give underwriters the discretion they need to just not count these taxes when appropriate.
That's awesome. Yeah, because that I don't know that people understand the intricacies of it, but you have the VA lender handbook. We talk about the 26-7. We talk about the 26-1. We talk about that's a lot of lenders base it all on the VA handbook, but then you've got the securitization rules of Ginnie Mae, Chapter 24, and sometimes that's where this murky water comes, and then you get these lender overlays. And so what Brendan's talking about is we're going to the source of the pool. Is like, look, if the handbook says here's how you can do it, then we can fight back against the Ginnie Mae requirements, which is just secondary securitization, and be like, hey, you don't need to do it. Here's the risk you're not taking. This is why you don't need to calculate it in. And then the lenders are just more likely to fall in place. I'll also say, like, even without legislative action, some states, and because of your work, lenders, wholesale lenders specifically, have gotten much more comfortable with not doing it. I closed a loan in Mississippi a couple months ago, 100% disabled. All their counties have the same rule. They just do the paperwork a little differently. And I just said to the underwriter, you know this about Texas and California, Maryland, and Virginia. Like, I know you know these things. Can you just put a condition for funding that they will fill out the county paperwork with the title agent and have title escrow file it when they file it? And she's like, oh yeah, we'll do that. And it's in large part because of all the work you've done. Sometimes you don't even need a state to say something. You just need the companies to be comfortable with the process.
100%. And the goal is to just fix it so that conversation does not even need to happen, because that's awesome. And absolutely, if you're listening to this and you're not in one of the states we've listed, talk around. Definitely some companies are willing to do this, but that's not a very efficient process. I also like efficiency. We just want to have it solved so that it's never a problem before. And, while a lot of loan officers are learning about this stuff, a lot still don't know about it. And they don't even know that they should be advocating in the way that you did, which, speaks to making sure the person you're working with knows what the heck they're doing. But even veterans who don't make the best choice in loan officer should still get what they deserve. So that's how I feel.
Right. Yeah. It's an earned benefit. That's right.
Yep.
Now talk to me, you mentioned it, but talk to me about the Broker Action Coalition. How did one action in Maryland turn into this national thing you're now involved in?
Yep. So I used to be head of government affairs at National Trade Association. And while there, created an organization called the Broker Action Coalition, which is now stands alone. It always did, but now it does completely. And for all the reasons I've talked about already, like fixing problems and solving issues, there are a lot when it comes to mortgage brokers. Without getting too far into all the problems that we face, and don't get me wrong, life is great as a mortgage broker, but there are a lot of unfair things since the passing of Dodd-Frank. And mortgage brokers have not had the voice in DC that I feel that they should. So I decided to do something about it. And depending on your perspective, some people might say things have gone really great. People might say they've gotten a little out of control. But my passion project has blown up in all sorts of amazing ways. And we've done some really cool things. We just recently were a big part of getting legislation passed that will eliminate trigger leads in 6 months, which is when your credit is pulled and your phone blows up because the credit bureaus are selling your information. So that will soon become a thing of the past. We have a lot of new projects that we're working on as well. And it's a good thing. It is just extensively good. Certainly we will make mistakes, but we have a lot of problems to solve and just try to do good work. And we have a saying at the back, if it's good for the consumer, it's good for the mortgage broker. And I do believe that to be deeply true. So you will find that most of the issues that we are working on are black and white benefits to the consumer as well. Yeah. And a lot of veteran stuff too. Once again, you got veterans, man, everyone says how much they love veterans, but gosh darn, are there a lot of problems everywhere you look when it comes to veterans in DC and government and all sorts of different places.
Yep.
So a lot of times those passions of mine coincide with each other, which is wonderful.
Well, and if anybody's listening to this and they go, ugh, another political action committee trying to do something for veterans, it's like, look, I need you to understand the VA home loan eligibility was a congressional act of 1945. Like, this is a reason, or 44. Anyway, I gotta get my dates right.
You're
But
good.
this is a very specific thing that it's on the books. It's actually legislatively, like, it is part of our legal rulings. And so to make a change, sometimes you have to have a group like BAC, Broker Action Coalition, who's going to step in and say, hey, we're seeing a problem. Here's how it lays out. Here's what everybody needs to know about it. One of them that you successfully got finished after a few years and collaborative work with other organizations. But I know from my perspective, y'all were at the front of this
Yep.
from the get go, was the trigger leads bill. And there's something major about that.
No, absolutely. And like to your point, like another organization, advocating for veterans. I mean, the veterans not in the name of our company. I like judge us by our work. We're not out there trying to promote ourselves as something that we're not. We're making improvements in the mortgage space, and veterans have a lot of problems in the mortgage space. And once again, mortgage brokers do. A higher percentage of the business that mortgage brokers do compared to other channels are VA loans. We work with veterans at a higher clip. I can tell you that we're out there because we care about veterans, and that's true, but it's also good for mortgage brokers. And I'm not going to make any bones about that either. But yeah, absolutely. And like, even to this point, the trigger lead bill, nothing in it says anything about veterans, but you and I both know that veterans are targeted by trigger leads at a disproportionate amount, and it will benefit them to a greater degree than it does other consumers. And awesome, that's a good thing. We didn't go out seeking it because it was a veteran issue, but we went out because mortgage brokers said it was the thing they wanted fixed, so we did it. And if it helps veterans, also awesome, amazing.
So for everybody listening, just give me the 30-second or 90-second rundown on trigger leads, what they are and what this bill has actually put
That's
to
right
stop to or pushed off.
person. I have about 250 congressional meetings of practice on this, so hopefully I do a good job. So I would start and say, Congressman, Congresswoman, do you know what a trigger lead is? And they would say no, or they would essentially say no. And I'd say, well, if you were to apply for a mortgage and I was to pull your credit, what would happen is that the credit bureaus would sell your information to solicitors, and because they know that you're in the market for a mortgage. And what would end up happening is that your phone would explode. For 2 to 3 days, you will get a never-ending stream of phone calls, texts, emails, all that stuff. And it is a gross violation of basic data privacy expectations, and it's simply wrong. Now, the reason that the credit bureaus were able to do this is because the Fair Credit Reporting Act was written in 1970 something. And at a time when it was very difficult to shop for a mortgage, you had to walk from one bank branch to another. And so this would be a way that, and transactions took 3 to 4 months to close. So you would get mailers. I would still argue that it was fundamentally wrong that a for-profit company, which credit bureaus are, they are not government entities. They're traded on the S&P 500. And for them to be able to sell consumer data without disclosure or permission. But at least there was a justification for it, and that just no longer exists. So it was time to solve the problem entirely, and that's what we did.
I love that. And you are correct. Is some people may ask and like, well, why are veterans targeted as much as they are? That seems unfair. If you can't, you can't target people for race, creed, color, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, marital status, like all those are protected classes. Why in the world are veterans targeted the way they are? And it's frankly that the status of being a veteran is not a protected class. That
Nope.
is it is the same as I am a bachelor holder from a university and I have a master's degree in business, and somebody could find that and they could target me because of that earned benefit or earned benefit, the diploma, right? The degree I have. And so I know that early on in VVA's history, it was like, well, let's go make veterans a protected class. And it's like that got hit with a brick wall pretty quick. And we realized that was the wrong thing to do because we don't want to be, they don't want to be protected classes. They just want the right information. And so in this, you've got a couple other active pieces of legislation now, and this is a fun time to say that Vetted VA, we've known Brendan for a long time. We are good friends, but Vetted VA did not jump right into the Broker Action Coalition side to side. We've always supported kind of quietly. We're done with that. We are publicly supporting and partnering with Broker Action Coalition. Brendan McKay as a active duty service member in our organization, which is, I know it's cheeky, tongue in cheek. That's what we call it. Um, he is actually serving as the legislative voice for Vetted VA as well. And so we are putting our support behind what the Broker Action Coalition is doing. And right now, you've got two you're supporting. The Valid Act is the one that I'm thinking of, and then the other one. What was the other one, Brendan? It's
Yep, the Valid
the
Act and
Disabled
the
Veteran Property Tax. More of that. Yeah.
well, no, the Valid Act and the VA Homeowner Awareness Act. And there's
Yes,
also
yes,
one
yes.
called the Valor Act as well.
Mhm.
That is a little confusing, but this group will actually understand it. And I can rip through them extremely quickly. The Valid Act does two things. Right now, there's a question on the mortgage application that says, "Are you an active duty service member or veteran? Yes or no?" Wonderful. Problem is that question is below the signature line on the 1003. And what that means is that it is not a mandatory question. So A, not everyone's answering it. B, it also means that it does not get reported to the regulators in what's called HMDA data. So every month, lenders send all this data to the CFPB. It's compiled, aggregated, and the industry can make intelligent decisions based on it. So by moving it above the signature line, it will make it so that it's publicly available information. Because we know that we have a problem. We just don't know how big the problem is. We know that there are a lot of veterans getting mortgages that are not VA loans. And I can tell you, as someone that's originated hundreds and hundreds of VA loans, once have I said, it's close. Conventional might actually make sense. It takes a combination of things to happen where that can ever be the case. And there's estimates out there that it's as high as 30% of eligible of individuals eligible for VA financing not using VA loans, and that's way too high. So,
Yeah.
but we need first to know exactly what it is, and then what this legislation will also do is tell us who's pushing them into other types of loans for their own self-interest, and it will put a
Mm.
spotlight on not always bad actors, but people, organizations, lenders will have to justify this behavior and be held accountable for it. And we think that's a very good thing. The other thing the bill does on if they say yes to the question and they're doing an FHA loan, which God knows why they would be, then there's currently a disclosure called the Informed Consumer Choice Disclosure. It shows FHA loan compared to a conventional loan. This would add a third column showing a VA loan as well. We love that bill. It has a lot of bipartisan support. And last week, we've been supporting it for a little bit, but last week was the first, with the Trigger Lead bill passing, we kind of had the capacity to start taking Hill meetings on other legislation. So that is what we did. The VA homeowner awareness, super simple. That military service question, it simply adds a sentence under it that says, if yes, you may be eligible for VA home loan benefits. That's it. Does this legislation move mountains? No. Is it just a clearly good thing? Yes. And we believe deeply that legislation or anything does not have to solve every aspect of a problem to be something worth doing. And rarely, when you're talking about a problem like this, there's probably 24 reasons why it's happening, and not all of them can even be fixed legislatively. But you do what you can where you can do it. So those are the two main ones.
It's so good too. And if you're listening to this, you're like, huh, yeah, I was asked if I was a veteran. Some companies do a really good job of making sure that question is asked up front. But to your point, it's just not mandated. Therefore, it's not expressed in data and structure post 2008 when all the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act and you had TRID, the Tiller Respite Integrated Disclosures, and now you have this big gathering of information looking for bad actors before it necessarily takes out an entire industry again. And what a lot of people don't know is that 2017, 18, when they were looking at the 1003 adjustments, they were doing it as well. That question about the VA loan was on page 1.
Yep.
And then lo and behold, after 18 months of delay of actually rolling out the new 1003, the Uniform Residential Loan application, it fell back down at the bottom. And everybody's like,
we're
what
trying to find
happened?
out why that happened. Actually,
Yeah.
I could probably throw darts and land on the correct answer.
Sure.
But it's interesting because, and you kind of mentioned earlier, veterans are disproportionately targeted by trigger leads because there's companies that very much want to do business with veterans because there's a lot of money to be made. And I can explain the reasons why. And there's other lenders who don't really want to do VA loans. And it's like, well, why one versus the other? And the reason is that to be able to do VA loans and do them well and effectively, you need, like, underwriters have to have a special classification. And the guidelines are different. They're better, but they're different, right? And so that means that you have to make operational decisions that accommodate it. But once you do it, they are so much easier. And because of how many crappy VA lenders there are out there and how bad their terms are, it's easier to pick off veterans when they're in the process. Even if your terms aren't that great, it's easy to be better than what they're seeing elsewhere. So it's like this yin and the yang in the industry, and neither are great, to be honest with you. But it has always been interesting to me, for sure.
And so Vetted VA is we are not a lender. We are an organization, a coalition of mortgage and real estate professionals training to be better, to serve better. The cool thing is, what we love about this is, if you go on vetedva.com and go into the VA loan resources, I think it's the first tab on our menu, and you'll see a white paper. That white paper is based on HMDA data, and that gets released annually. This is the kind of information we want to know, because right now we make educated guesses based on VA data and HMDA data and how many veterans are out there in the U.S. that the Department of Defense will tell us information there, that we can say, hey, this is the percentage of VA eligible buyers and borrowers and what this looks like. And having information that Valid Act or the ID Act would allow us to know is so wonderful. Like, I want to know. I'm not saying that you have to use your VA home loan.
Nope.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, and neither is Brendan, actually, if you're listening to this and going, well, you guys just want us to take out bigger loan amounts at 100% financing, that's not it at all.
Nope.
Actually, I just want to make sure that something you earn contractually, you have the ability to use when you decide to use it, and for the reason you decide to use it. Being sold some other reason because that loan officer, that lending company, is not comfortable with or does not employ LAPSAR underwriters, which is the designation they have to get automatic approval authority through the VA, then they need to be able to say that. Like, look, we can't do it. Like, glad you're a veteran. I can't do this loan, but here's the loans I can do. And then, as a veteran, as a VA eligible consumer, you should be able to go, oh, wait, I wonder who else can do it. I need to look around.
And that's the goal. You want people to see the option and know that it exists.
Yeah.
Now, I do think I make the same amount of money whether someone does a VA loan or a conventional loan. I'll tell you that right now. But so it's not out of my own self-interest. I promise you that. What I will say is I'm not going to look out there looking to make anyone use their VA loan, but they probably should.
Yeah.
You know, the interest rates are lower. There's no mortgage insurance. Like, they're easier to refinance. There's all these awesome. The closing costs are lower, despite what people say. All these wonderful things about it, and it should be shouted from the rooftops. And it needs to be, because 10 years ago that wasn't the case. The VA loan has improved drastically over the last, I don't know, 10-ish years. We'll say, when I first got into the industry, the interest rates were not lower. The guidelines were not easier. Like, none of these things were true about it. And it takes the world a while to catch up to the new reality.
I remember the first VA loan I did in 2009. It was not easy. I was like, why would anybody want to use this benefit?
Yeah.
And my father is also a Vietnam veteran, was like, yeah, I don't ever want to use it. Like, I don't trust the military programs. And since then, he's using his more, which is great. And I remember going through that, and, like, now looking at it, man, if you can follow along, say what you will, the VA home loan guarantee has made great strides. Appraisal updates, structured updates, lender authority to do the loan that they want to do when they think it makes sense. Being able to argue for the benefit of the veteran why they might have chosen to say yes to something when they could have just said no because it makes sense. That's beautiful stuff. So, Brendan, I think you also mentioned the Valor Act. Did I hear the two in the same time, or that's
yep, the Valor Act? So the Valor Act addresses a niche problem. So when a veteran, usually they have 20 plus years of service, is transitioning from active duty to civilian life, the way that things happen is they have so much built up leave that they essentially have retired in their day to day and how they live because they're on leave, but they haven't technically retired until 9 months later. Okay, so because they have this built up leave, they're going to let run out, and they might have even started their new job, maybe haven't, this and that, yada yada, right? And the problem that exists currently for individuals like that is that until their retirement paperwork is fully processed, except in very rare circumstances, are they able to finish the application process for a disability rating. Okay, it's
Right.
like, whatever. Problem is, if you have applied for a disability rating and you buy a house and use your VA loan, the funding fee is collected, but then once it's approved, you get it refunded back to you. Okay, once you get your rating back. If they try to buy a house during that 9 month window, that doesn't happen. And they want to. They've moved on. They're ready to go live where they're going to live in their post-military career and all these things. And they're guaranteed to get a disability rating for all intents and purposes. If you've been in the military for 20 years, you're banged up, like you're going to get a rating of 10% or higher, unless you were a dentist or something like that. But I had one of those guys. It's like, I'll never forget it. I'm like, yeah, oh, you definitely. He's like, nope, dentist. I'm like, oh, I guess not. So, and this would solve that problem. It would create a change. I'm trying to remember the technicalities of it, but it doesn't really matter. Those individuals would be able to get their VA funding fee refunded after they get it approved.
That's awesome.
And it is awesome. It's going to be tough legislation to pass. I'll tell you that right now. We're going to fight for it anyways, because it is retroactive. And sometimes with this stuff, I'll explain it, and I'm not arguing against it, but we need to explain the realities of the world and how things work, even if we don't like the way they work. And one way to change them is by pointing them out and just talking about them. By it being retroactive, it's going to cost a lot of money. And those veterans should get the money. I feel strongly about that. But a lot of people, politicians included, get a lot less patriotic when it costs money. And that would be the case in this one. So that's the deal with that one. I think it's a great bill. We're going to fight for it. It's definitely going to be difficult to pass. But on all three of these veteran-related bills, you guys can expect to see links from me that you can click and within 30 seconds have an email to your elected officials, your member of Congress, and your two senators advocating and asking that they support this legislation. And yeah, they're great.
So with that, and in fact, that's a great segue here. Brendan he is serving in this role now with us. And so you will still see him in the Vetted VA group on Facebook, our main group. You'll see him in the Vetted VA for Professionals only, the group we have where all the professionals that want to serve better. And he'll be bringing updates from the Broker Action Coalition, the back. He will be kind of telling us what's going on. We've got a new landing page on vettedva.com/Broker Action Coalition, and we'll be updating that with links as well. So if this is a nonpartisan thing, this is I don't know, maybe I should even say it's special interest, right? We are focused on VA home ownership.
Yep.
And so that is where we are partnering with them. It takes everybody, and a lot of times it's how loud you can get your voice in the midst of all the other loud stuff, and it makes sense.
No, I mean, DC is a very partisan place. I don't think I'm breaking news to anyone on that. But that does not mean that everything that happens and every conversation is partisan.
Right.
Every single issue that we've talked about legislatively, including trigger leads, had massive bipartisan support. And what we're really talking about is veterans and housing. And that's always bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats might care about some of those issues in slightly different ways. But one thing is collectively true. They want every single one of their constituent who wants to be a homeowner to be able to be a homeowner. That's a good thing for them. So something I say oftentimes is like, oh, I don't know how you stand it down in DC. I was worried when I first started doing this work that I was going to have to swallow my tongue and listen to just something I objectively disagree with. It's happened maybe twice in the hundreds of meetings I've held, because we're not talking about that stuff. The stuff we're talking about is too boring for cable news. But that doesn't mean it's not good and it's not important. Right. It's why it's good and why it's important. It's just not exciting enough or scandalous enough to get ratings, which is an unfortunate statement on our society. But good things still do happen in DC. There's just not enough people talking about it, but it doesn't mean the work ain't happening.
Well, I'm excited to have you talking about it more with us inside of our groups. I'm excited and grateful, Brendan, that you've been a friend and a member of our organization for such a long time. And I'm glad to be able to work in this new area with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have more questions for Brendan, or if you're in Maryland or DC or Virginia and you're like, I want to talk to this guy about a mortgage, well, you can always find his information on VVA.com as well. You can find him under Brendan McKay. It's McKayMortgage.com. Is that correct?
McKayMortgageCo.com. We actually just launched a new website. I haven't even announced it yet, but man, I'm like every other loan officer and realtor for that matter. It is not hard to find our contact information. You just Google Brendan McKay Mortgage and plenty of stuff will come up. But no,
that is
loan
true.
officer is not doing their job if people can't find out how to get a hold of them. With
if you can't see my photo anywhere and you can't find my name, then I'm not in the business very long. So
we all love attention too. So there's another reason that we all do it. So there you go.
I love it. All right. Well, with that, we invite you listeners to join the VVA Facebook group, to check us out on LinkedIn, to find us on Instagram, updates, information. And as always, go to VVA.com. We've got resources, insights, white papers, and the contact information of all the men and women that make up our VVA professionals and the ones who have come to us and said, we want training and accountability, please. And we said, okay, let's do it. So with that, Brendan, thank you for being here. Thanks for your time, sir. And we'll bring more in the future, I'm sure.
Dude, hell yeah, brother. I love it. Giddy up. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you for listening to the VVA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at VVA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the VVA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join VVA on Facebook or VVA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at VVA.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vettedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.